All right, welcome back to Hanging Einstein. I'm Andy Singleton. I want to first say, if you see some swelling, I had a tooth pulled the other day, so I'm trying to fight through it, and was contemplating not doing even an episode this week, but fortunately, I have some people that I can count on in the industry, and I am joined today. I'm very excited about this. I'm joined by Mr. Nando Di Fino.
Yeah.
Nando, how are you?
Great, man. How are you?
Well, I just said I'm in a little bit of pain.
Besides the tooth.
Yeah, the drugs are helping. But I say admirably that, I got to meet you back before the football season. Now we're here before the baseball season, and I've been trying to transition from fantasy football analyst to baseball guys, and you're kind of that perfect fit because you're like me. You're into both things. So yeah. Before I get into some questions with you, let me have you first tell everybody who you are and where they can find you.
Right now, I'm working at the FNTSY Sports Network. I'm doing some stuff with Sirius XM Radio on the Fantasy Channel. Those are the two main ones. I mean, you could follow me on Twitter, but I don't do anything with it. I just answer a bunch of questions and retweet things from my friends.
Yeah, but that's what it's there for too. Though people do ask you, and you do answer them. So, and you're being a little modest. So you say you're a fantasy Sports Network now, but you've pretty much worked at every sports agency market there is, especially in fantasy circles. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it's been fortunate. I started with Matthew Berry, went over to ESPN with him, went to the Wall Street Journal after that, and CBSSports.com after that. So yeah, I've bounced around a little bit. Okay,
and now, as you said, you're at the Fantasy Sports Network, which you're one of the. Are you one of the creators and originators of that?
No, I came on. It launched March a couple of years ago. I came on in June. So, okay. I mean, in 50 years, they'll be like, yeah, he was right there at the beginning.
Right.
Well, right now, no, I wasn't there right at the beginning.
Okay. Well, you are one of the big catches, though, in terms of getting this going to a new level.
Well, thanks, man. It means a lot.
Well, no, it's the truth. I mean, we mentioned some of your credits. I mean, ESPN, CBS Sports, Wall Street Journal, AOL, now Fantasy Sports Networks. I mean, you've been all over the place. So is that something you actually wanted to get into? Or was it just, did it find you or did you find it?
I think it kind of a little bit of both. Like I had played fantasy forever since I want to say sophomore year of high school. But I was a history nerd. I was going to be a history professor, something along those lines, or just teacher in high school. And then I ended up taking a job when I was in grad school, working on this thing called the Sports Ticker, which was basically like the bottom line for ESPN. We supplied a lot of those stats. Right. When I was done with school, I found this job working as a research assistant on a book about fantasy baseball. It's called Fantasyland. This guy, Sam Walker, wrote it. He's now the editor at Wall Street Journal Sports. So from there, I met Matthew Berry, and it just all kind of snowballed. Okay.
So, I mean, it's from where you were back then to where things are now. Obviously, this industry has grown rapidly. It just keeps growing on top of itself. So it's, you obviously had a great work ethic to yourself, but at the same time, you also found yourself in some good opportunities at the right time. Would you agree that it'd be a lot harder for somebody to break in at this point? And what are some things that, somebody that wants to try to get to a position like yours, how's a way they could go about it? What would you suggest to somebody?
I think it might be a little easier right now. Like when this was back in 2004, like when Fantasyland came out. I think it was 2005 actually. Okay. There weren't a ton of blogs. Fantasy wasn't as big, so there weren't bigger sites even trying to start little fantasy kind of like side projects. Right. And especially with the rise of the podcast and everything, iTunes, you can go to iTunes and punch in fantasy podcast, and dudes like Dennis Esser are on there. The fantasy footballers they're not affiliated with any big company. So I think right now, if you can dedicate the time and you're good at it and you give people information they're not going to get from anywhere else, or at least do it in an entertaining fashion, you're going to do all right for yourself because it's a leveled playing field. I think it's very fair. There's a very level playing field. Go to iTunes, punch in fantasy, and you get everything right in front of you, and it's up to the consumer to pick it.
Right. And so, okay. And I hadn't thought about it from that angle as well. It's more commonly accepted now. So while there is more competition and there are more people doing it, you are reaching a much larger market just because so many people are involved in it. It seems like a lot of people I talk to, we kind of grew up feeling like closet nerds in a way. that we played fantasy sports, and now it's like this cool thing. So we're all like, ripping our shirt off, and we're proud to say that we are involved in fantasy sports. But you said you were in grad school and you were basically you were doing a research job at the time, or with the sports stick or whatever, and it just kind of graduated into this. What did you actually go to school for, and what school did you go to?
History. I went to Boston College undergrad, and then I went to Fordham here in New York for history. And I don't know. I liked history. I like research. I'm a nerd like that,
Okay. Well, listen, like I said, it's become cool to be a nerd. So fantasy has a lot to do with that.
I never did like communications or journalism or any of that stuff. I just like my history.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Right.
And did you grow up in Boston?
No, I grew up upstate New York in Syracuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I personally know that from our conversations in the past, but to share this with everybody else who might not know that.
It's for the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's some little kid in Syracuse right now who doesn't want to be a journalism major but wants to get into fantasy sports. Follow my path. Yeah,
but okay, so that's just it. So you grew up in Syracuse, which has another huge Big East university, which has a insanely good journalism school, and you left there to go to a smaller university with equally as big of a reputation, but not for journalism, although you wound up getting into journalism.
Yeah, like I said, I guess I like to write, but I didn't want to. I don't know what it was. Maybe when I was growing up, I met some newspaper writers or something I didn't like. I didn't like the people, on the news. I thought they were kind of elitist and stuffy. Right. So I'm like, why would I go to school for that? And plus, if I feel like I can already write well, I don't think I need to go to school to learn how to write. It's going to be a waste of time. And plus, I grew up in Syracuse. I had like 18 years in Syracuse. So I figured I got 4 years to go somewhere. Where do I want to go?
Right.
Geneseo, Boston, wherever,
You miss it at all?
Oh, I go up as much as I can. I love it, man. It's such a nice place with good people and cheap beer prices that, Syracuse is awesome. I had a bachelor party in Syracuse, dude. Okay, well,
I've personally never been, but I hear, like, especially if you're into sports, you have to go just to, like, witness the Carrier Dome firsthand, just for that simple fact alone. Like, it's just a massive, impressive thing that only, being there in person can you really truly absorb it. But I've mentioned on the show, I think in the past, I went to Providence my first year, so I was, part of the whole New England. Providence, Boston College, Syracuse, that whole little mix. And so there's some Big East rivalry there.
Providence is awesome. We used to go down to Providence. We used to go to Club Hell, but that was like 98, 99, man. I'm maybe a little older than you. Dating myself.
I'm actually older than you.
Really?
I was there in 94. I graduated high school in 93.
You look like a spring chicken, man.
Thank you. I'm trying to wear it. So hopefully.
So Club Hell then?
Well, there was something. I honestly don't remember the names, and half the time I was probably too inebriated to remember where I was. Anyway, I only lasted a year there, but that was a long time ago. I mean, you're dating me right now by saying.
I'm sorry. I thought I was dating myself.
So, who was actually there when you were there on the basketball team? I'm trying to think.
It was Scooney Penn, Danya Abrams. It was when Scooney Penn left, when we had that big exodus to Ohio State because they wouldn't let a couple guys in who didn't have good enough SAT scores.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple rough years.
So you were well before Matt Ryan, man.
Yep, I was both Hasselbecks. I was at the end of Matt Hasselbeck and the start of Tim Hasselbeck.
Oh, so that was a pretty good time to be there then.
Yeah, it was fun.
Was Coughlin there?
No, Coughlin wasn't there. It was I can't remember. I want to say not Dan Henning. I don't know. Some coach that everyone hated because he was boring. Right. In retrospect, he was very good.
All right. Well, I mean, so you'd be an interesting guy to ask this to. And I actually, like every time I talk to Sigmund Bloom, we always get into the Big East stuff because, he was a Syracuse guy himself and grew up, in Pittsburgh. So you grew up with the whole Big East vibe. How do you feel the conference is you feel like it's kind of where it needs to be? Does it still need to do some altering to it? I mean, it's never going to have what it had back in the day.
Yeah.
Are we close to that at least?
I hate what happened. Like, really, it's disgusting what happened to the Big East. It used to be so much fun. What's I guess what it is now? I think it's still, you got some great teams there. I'd love to see a St. John's resurgence because that always was kind of like the team that made, like, I know like SU Georgetown was always fun. Seton Hall Syracuse is always fun, but it was like if St. John's was good, They were like the bad guys from New York City who had like an edge, and it was just always a lot more fun to have a good game with them than to just kind of know you're going to beat St. John's every time. So I'm actually rooting for St. John's to do well again. But yeah, I really like haven't paid as much attention as I had in the past, just because it kind of destroyed me when they took apart the Big East.
Okay. Well, I mean, you mentioned St. John's, which is my favorite basketball team growing up, and Chris Mullins obviously back in the mix. But St. John's, of the three schools we just talked about, is the only one that's still in the Big East, as you know.
Right.
Syracuse have now left for greener pastures. But so walk me through now a little bit to what you do at Fantasy Network and how that process has been, and what are your findings with that? Because from what I understand, it is literally the first truly dedicated fantasy sports kind of network, or just organization, if you will, on the same level as, in ESPN and the CBS Sports and all that kind of stuff. But it's literally just with the fantasy game on mind. So
yeah. If you turn on fantasy any time of day, we have like it's very not like beautiful tickers going across and up and down the sides. It's like a CNBC for fantasy sports. There's always some kind of information up to the minute, up to the second you can pull out of it. We have shows on all day, just 24 hours of TV shows, desk shows giving you advice. We hit everything from like golf to Bachelor to anything that has a fantasy in front of it. We're doing, and it's honestly, I'm not just saying it because I'm there. It's a very cool concept with some very cool people, and my bosses, the people who do a lot of the hiring, are very good at like pinpointing talent. There's a guy, Chris Meany, there right now who's great. This girl Ashley Docking, she's tremendous. She's a really great fantasy hoops mind. It's from like top to bottom. We're getting into esports now. We got a couple good guys for that. It's just cool. It's like if you live and breathe fantasy, it's worth checking out. Okay.
Now, did I hear you correctly? Did you say the Fantasy Bachelor?
Yeah. Pat Mayo. There's a game. You get points if someone cries, if someone gets drunk. Obviously, if they get a rose, you get more points. But every little thing that can happen on The Bachelor, there's some kind of fantasy value assigned to it.
Okay. Well, that leads me to some of my other questions I wanted to ask you. Now, you've seen the whole rise of fantasy to popularity, to now the whole DFS rage and the whole situation going on with that. Do you think that like we've hit a wall with fantasy? Like, sometimes they say rookies hit the rookie wall or whatever, and midway through the season. I mean, do you think like we've just oversaturated the fantasy space and now we kind of have to rework things, or do you think it's just we're going so fast that we still have room to grow, but it's just we have to figure out, our legs are moving too quick for us right now?
No, I think there's a lot more room to grow, especially with football. I think you look at how many more women are playing the game. My wife's in like 2 leagues with her friends. I know a bunch of people whose wives, whose girlfriends are playing in leagues. That's, I don't want to like diminish it and be like, that's an untapped market. But, as the numbers continue to grow, I mean, they're going to start their own leagues, these new fantasy players. Right. I think a lot of older people are starting to pick up fantasy because it's fun and like their family members are playing it and they're getting sucked in. So I think there is a traditional fantasy, and especially fantasy football, there's a ton of room for growth left.
And do you have a preference for what you enjoy playing, especially when it comes to football? Like, is it? I mean, obviously you have a mix of everything on your resume, but do you have a favorite as far as dynasty, redraft, DFS, keeper leagues, salary cap? Remember the old salary cap type games? And
yeah, CDM.
Okay, right. So
dude, I'm all about dynasty fantasy. Baseball is my favorite thing in the world. Keeper fantasy baseball, however you want to paint it. Auctions with salaries, that even better for me. The deeper the league, the better. I don't know why, but I'm very good. Like, look, I'll be honest, I'm terrible at DFS, but I'm like a single entry, fill out a lineup and go. Right. So I'm not playing the game the way you're supposed to play the game, and I only play tournaments, not 50-50s. But what I'm very good at is picking out like the DJ LeMahieu's of the world. Okay. Like seeing something in the statistics. And I don't know why it plays well in dynasty leagues. And if I'm crap, I love rebuilding my team and making trades for the future. I just think if you have the time and you can put in the effort, playing anything dynasty is worth it.
You know what? And I completely agree with that. And I think the growth in dynasty football and baseball both has kind of been more the impetus for this, fantasy renaissance, if you will. Just because people care more about your team. The redraft, the traditional season long, if you're out of it after a couple weeks, people just kind of forget about it, and you have half of a dead league. When you're in these dynasty leagues, like it's you care. Like I'm making baseball trades, at Thanksgiving, at the Thanksgiving, dinner table, and people, what are you talking about baseball for? It's Thanksgiving. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I got a deal I can't refuse right here. I've been working on this for 2 weeks already, and
this never ends.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really, adds to the passion of it. And I think DFS just kind of spotted it a little, if you will, because it is fun. But I'm like you, like I'm I'll find the DJ LeMahieu, but the guy I was depending on, the Miguel Cabrera that day, went 0 for 4. So while I found the sleeper that I needed for the day, the stud I was kind of relying on, that was the day that, maybe I shouldn't have picked him. So I'm in the same boat with the DFS stuff. But do you, what's your opinion on the future of it? Because obviously something has to change. It's in the crosshairs of government now, and it's not just going to, fade away.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where money talks. Look, and this is just rudimentary math. If you look at, I think 2014, I believe the number was $25 million was spent by New Yorkers on FanDuel. So if you're a legislator and you say, all right, I want a 10% tax on this, that'll give me $2.5 million for the state of New York, which is kind of still chump change in a way if you're New York, and maybe it has to be 20%. I don't know. But I really do think we're gonna reach an agreement at some point where it's taxed. It generates revenue for the state, and everyone can continue on playing. I'm assuming like a $20 game becomes like 24 if they want to do a 20% tax.
Okay.
This is just my guess, but I do think we're going to see a lot of these games taxed. Because it'll benefit the state, and then regulated by the state or some kind of authority they create, and we'll all just go on our merry way and keep playing.
Right. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and you don't have to answer this if if you can't or don't want to. But with all the attention that the two big boys have obviously drawn to themselves, do you feel like there's a way for them to rework their model and stay, or do you think ultimately they get forced out and somebody else comes in the wake of that?
No, I think, look, just 10 minutes ago, they announced DraftKings bought Countermove. They're still very healthy.
Okay.
FanDuel's, they're big and they're smart, and people have short attention spans. So if it's a reinvention, or if it's just like making a big deal out of saying, hey, we reached this agreement with these legislators and now we're going to do this and that, and you're protected, and they get the right faces out there in front of the TV cameras and online and stuff, they'll be fine. Because you know what? If someone gets big enough, the state's just going to chop them down again too. So it's it could be different names. It's just it just so happens that these two are taking the bullets for everyone else right now.
Well, and that's kind of like my point with that is that they're not the only two, but they're the only two you hear about. They're the only two you hear about, right? So it's kind of like, are they the sacrificial lambs for this? That whoever has an agenda towards regulating this or ending it or whatever their ultimate end game is, are they not going to be happy until these two are put on trial? So that's kind of more where I was going with that. But that's a very open-ended question.
Well, I don't think they're ever going to hit trial. Look, another one of my I used to work at Court TV. I was there for 5 years as a producer, doing a lot of stuff on the side.
Okay.
And my job would be, I got to find these awesome cases and then track them and interview people and the lawyers and everyone involved, set it up so the cameras will be in the courtroom. This is like a month. This is sometimes a 1.5 year long process of tracking a trial from start until it goes to trial.
Right.
And I would say 90% of those cases never reach trial. You do all this work, and then right at the last second, they reach an agreement, trial's off, no need to bring the cameras. Okay. So I'm used to this. This stuff will never go to trial.
Right.
This is just going to be a lot of public going back and forth until some kind of an agreement is reached, I think.
All right. Well, shifting gears a little, but also kind of with the trend in technology and just where society's going and where the fantasy game is going and all that as well. As I'm trying to do with this channel, with the Nickel Press TV on YouTube and this video series and everything like that, is try to incorporate more video. It seems like as you mentioned earlier, like there's, you can go to iTunes and type in fantasy and get, 1,000,001 podcasts, and the audio's there, and there's even 10 times more articles and blog posts and things of that nature. But as far as the video aspect goes, you're doing a lot of that stuff with the Fantasy Sports Network.
Yeah.
Pat Mayo, as you mentioned, is probably like the I'm drawing a blank with the name I was trying to give him. I was going to say like the Johnny Carson of video in fantasy sports at this point. But do you see this growing at all, or do you think that people's attention spans are more just built towards reading something quickly, or just listening to something on their way to work, or while they're going about their business?
Personally, I don't watch video. I just don't have the time or not the attention span, but yeah, if there's an 8-minute video, I'm probably going to skip through a bunch of it just because I don't have, for work, man, I don't have time. Like, I'm up at 6 a.m. and I'm not done with work until 10 p.m., just checking in on emails and stuff. Right. I prefer reading. Like, when you poop, you want to read something. When you're just sitting around on the train, you want to read something. You can't really watch a video. But I'm fully aware that there's a whole generation of kids younger than us, dude, who are watching videos like crazy on their phones, Chromecasting things, cutting their cable. Like, it's personally, I can't let my own kind of biases get in the way. Things don't work for other people. I'm not watching a lot of video, but a lot of people are. So I think video is a smart way to go right now. It's also the easiest one to sell advertising on and the most attractive. So there are a bunch of reasons to go for video. I still like reading, but I think I'm in the minority right now.
Well, you're also a history buff, which
I'm a history. Yeah, that's true. I'm a history buff.
You read, so
exactly.
But no, I asked that because like that was why I wanted to get into the video, because you see stuff like Vine. Everybody's on Instagram now, and everywhere you look, there's video clips of this and video clips of that, and it just only seemed like a natural hand-in-hand fit. And my whole thing behind this was, people might be familiar with your name. They might be familiar with, reading your stuff or hearing your voice. But how many people actually get to see you and know what Nando Di Fino looks like, and, how you move and how you act and everything like that. So, it was kind of just to add that to it. But I've noticed with doing these, while people enjoy watching it, it is kind of hard to keep people's attention span, and people want an audio version of this as well. So I've been trying to, supplement it with that as well. But it's just a weird thing. It's just, like you said, like, we're trying to figure this out. I'm in my 40s now. Which direction what do kids want nowadays? And
well, just give them everything and let them find you, though.
Right.
Why shut it off to what, like Pat Mayo does the video and then he turns that into a podcast. And so, if you got someone who's commuting on the train and just wants to listen to a podcast on the way back from work, they can do that. Or if they're driving their car and they want to hook it up to their stereo system.
Absolutely.
And if you're a kid who's at home,
there is an audio-only version of this available on iTunes and Stitcher, so all you guys can go and download that if you want as well. If you'd rather listen to Nando than see him.
That's right.
Now, you mentioned you're up from the crack of dawn till the late hours of the night. When do you actually sleep? And is all of this time dedicated just to fantasy, or what else is going on in your life? I mean, you mentioned you're married.
Yeah, I'm married. I'm like. Look, I don't want to make it sound like I'm in a little room until 10 o'clock at night somewhere. The last show I'm kind of in charge of, the DraftKings live show, ends at 7 o'clock on the FNTSY Sports Network, PM. So when that's over, I got to, catch up on emails, do all that kind of stuff, return a couple phone calls. My wife will get home from work. We'll eat. We'll hang out a little bit. We'll watch TV. But I'm still I'm checking and answering. And if someone calls, I got to pick it up. Then I go to sleep.
Well, I didn't mean to allude that you're like, in a little box. I mean, you actually have 2 windows in your room as we
can look at this. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes, you do. You do get some sunlight and everything. But I remember more like what else goes on in your day, or what are your other interests and hobbies that when you do get away from the fantasy stuff?
Okay, gotcha. I watch some TV. I read a lot.
Shows like Jake Seeley, when he was on, he was telling us all about Daredevil and how Daredevil.
I disagree with Jake. I think Daredevil was overrated.
I only got through like 3 episodes. And
that's what happened.
Everybody around me that I watched it with loved it, but I could only handle 3.
I was the same thing for everyone was, it's the greatest thing ever, and I finally watched it. I'm like, it was all right, I guess. Well, the Kingpin was awesome, but everything else is just kind of whatever.
Well, I mean, when do you have time? Because all right, so Football season just ended.
Yep.
Baseball seasons, pitchers and catchers are like 7 days away.
Yep.
You have golf going on. You have NASCAR going on. You have the Fantasy Bachelor going on.
Yeah, well, I don't touch that other stuff though.
No, but I'm just saying, like you have all these things that you got to manage and stuff. So it's pretty much a 12-month out of the year calendar for you. So do you get a chance to actually break away from it at all and take a vacation and get away, or are the vacations that you do get to take, are they all business related? And do you get a chance to go to the movies and?
Oh yeah.
All right.
I've seen Star Wars 3 times already, man.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw the night it came out, and then I went with my friend right before Christmas, and I went again last week because I've gotten it. And here's what I do with my free time: the Reddit, the fan theories, and stuff like that. And I don't know why. Like I kind of stopped Star Wars for a while, and then I saw the movie and I got back into it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to see it again and see if I could catch some things that I haven't been able to catch yet.
Okay.
Things I read about, like, did you notice this part in the movie? I'm like, oh no, I didn't.
And have you?
Yeah, the third time I kind of picked up a couple things that I might have missed, but nothing humongous.
Would these be like spoilers to reveal any?
Yeah, I don't want to review that. Yeah.
I heard, for instance, like Daniel, I think it was Daniel Craig, was one of the stormtroopers, and although you don't see him, you could pick out his voice and hear him. He had a speaking line.
Kevin Smith had one of those too. The guy from Clerks. Yeah, it's little things like that. I just thought I had some free time. I'm like, I'll go to the movie.
Okay. And
why not?
How did you feel about the actual story itself? See, I grew up with the whole Star Wars thing, obviously, but it really kind of lost me with the first 3 or the second 3.
Right.
The bad years, and
yeah.
I wanted to get swept up in all the hype of all this and everything like that. And so I did go see the movie. And I thought it was a good movie, but it didn't really, it stood alone as just a movie to me. I did appreciate the fact that they kept the feel of the original, Star Wars series where, the production, the transitions and everything were very, very much in line. So I definitely like the quality and authenticity of that. But I hear a lot of people complaining about the storyline itself. So did you have a problem with that?
No, man, I loved it. I thought it was awesome from start to finish. Look, I've seen it 3 times. Look, when I walked out the first time, I'm like, that was pretty much like A New Hope, kind of just rejiggered. But after a while, I'm like, no, that was a really good movie. I liked it. I don't care. They were resetting the franchise.
Well, now one conspiracy theory, among others, like Tupac is alive still, is that Han Solo is in fact still alive. So
you just spoiled the movie.
What's that?
You just spoiled the movie for people who haven't seen it yet.
Come on, who hasn't seen it? If you really wanted to see
that's a good point. It's like February.
Yeah, if you really wanted to see it, you've seen it by this point. And in some cases, 3 or more times, such as yourself and others. But is there anything to that, or would you like to put that conspiracy to bed right now?
I can't see how that's possible. I cannot see the conspiracy theory that I liked for a second was that Han Solo did it to himself to help his son and teach his son, the light side again.
Okay.
But it's I read the novelization and they did not say that in the novelization. So,
okay.
Oh well.
That
was my favorite conspiracy theory before.
Oh, wow. And now we have to wait. What is it, like 2 years for the next installment?
December 2017.
There you go. Okay.
Mark it down.
Is it already? It's already on your calendar.
I just read about it yesterday, actually.
All right. How about music? What are some bands and songs that you are a fan of?
I'm out of the loop with new stuff, man. You know what? When I'm driving around, I'm like, who's that? It always tends to be Selena Gomez for some reason.
Really?
When I look it up. Yeah. Okay. Back in the day, I used to like a little bit of everything. I was into Rolling Stones. I was really into the Roots. I don't know, a wide mix of things. I just right now, like I don't have a car. Like we live in New York.
Right.
Don't have a car to listen to anything.
So are you in the city itself as well?
I'm in Weehawken. I'm right across.
That's a quick commute though. So
yeah, it's easy.
Path training.
No, you know what? I take the ferry in because I used to have to get in there for the radio show, and if I was late, I'm screwed. Like because the radio show starts if you're there or not.
Okay.
So the ferry gets you in like exactly 7 minutes, and then the bus takes like exactly 13.
Okay.
So 20 minutes, I know I'm going to be there like plus minus 2 minutes at the most.
I was going to say that it's got to be freezing, especially in times like this, but you're from Syracuse, so
that's nothing.
Yeah, you're like in t-shirts and shorts right now, right?
I don't even have boots.
I believe
I don't
it.
need them.
I believe
I
it.
just walk around in sneakers.
I believe it. I actually said the same thing about music, is that I find myself listening more and more to, just stuff I'm already familiar with. And, the new stuff, occasionally, something, falls through the cracks or whatever, to the point that I, try to find out the artist and the name, or maybe download it or whatever. But
Right.
listening to a lot of, just familiar stuff. I don't know if that's laziness. Just, it's already in my, my phone or my iPad or whatever. So,
well, you don't do you drive? What do you do with the Firehouse? You guys have music on all the time?
No, hardly ever. Usually sports, stock market stuff, like CNBC, like you said.
All right.
That's not me, but some guys are into that. And I mean, we're not really there much. We're usually out the door, saving lives and protecting the city.
That's a good point.
It's a busy city.
But man, like, we don't drive around a lot. There's no it's that's where I used to hear music when I was driving around, and now that I'm not driving around, it's it's even when I'm driving around, I'm listening to the backspin on XM.
Okay, well, there you go. Plug in one of your affiliates.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was honest. That wasn't just a plug.
Okay. I mean, it's fine either way, but it was a good drop right there. All right, so you have to tell me some literature then, or give me something that's like your favorite historical fact. Since you were a history major, I got to get like a great book that you've read, or something that really stood out to you in your studies of history that was just kind of what gave you the passion to be a historian.
Oh, the best book I've read in like I'll give you one like in the last 5 years is American Brutus. It's about John Wilkes Booth, and like this is really well researched, really great storytelling about the conspiracy to take down Lincoln. I mean, I think a lot of people still don't realize like there's a lot more going on than just Wilkes Booth killing Lincoln. Like they were trying to take out the entire top of government. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of attacks, anyway. It's a great story about John Wilkes Booth. I don't know if it makes you kind of empathize, but I don't know. They don't paint him as the villain that people just kind of blanket on him. It's a twisted kind of portrait of him, but it's a really compelling book. It was a quick read, so
okay.
I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much. I thought it was going to be kind of dry, but it was really good.
American Brutus.
Yeah, and there's another one. I think a lot like The Devil in the White City. A lot of people have read. Okay. Really cool story about the World's Fair right at the turn of the century, and they kind of intersperse the start of the World's Fair with a serial killer who's loose in Chicago.
Oh,
that one's great. I would recommend that one ahead of American Brutus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? So this is going to bring me a little. I don't know if it's on topic or off topic, but did you get into that podcast series Serial at all?
No. You know what? Honestly, I got so annoyed by everyone talking about it that I'm like, I don't want to. I watched Making a Murderer. My wife wanted to watch that, but I didn't get into Serial just because it was so annoying on Twitter and Facebook, and it was people I hated who I just kind of follow. Who were like, "Oh, it's the greatest thing ever! How unfair!"
Right.
So, yeah.
I listened to it probably a good 6 months after the hype, and I kind of missed the hype. So I'm checking the time for you. I got it.
Oh no, I got a phone ringing. Hold on, I'm gonna turn this off for you. Hold on 1 second. Just keep talking. I'll have my thing on.
All right. No, I was saying I got into it probably about 6 months after the hype, and I didn't even really see the hype around it. So I don't know how I missed it, but it's basically like I went into hibernation, woke up, and I missed the whole thing. But I checked it out, and I would recommend it. It actually is pretty cool. It's
really, from working at Court TV all that time, like I had my fill of cases and stuff. Maybe that had something to do with it too.
You know what it was for me? It wasn't just the story. It was, and you could probably appreciate this, especially, all the stuff you've done with production and everything was really the production of it, the creativity, the artistic quality to it, the way it was just all put together. You have the narrator, you have, voices, you have actual real, historical data that is, it was, I thought it was the presentation of it was probably the best part of it, but
maybe I'll check it out now the hype has died down.
Yes, exactly. Now that I gave this glowing endorsement, which I will not receive any royalties for. Right. So since we're talking about murders and all this kind of crazy stuff, did you?
Since we got on that,
did you see the Robert Durst special?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so that was, I didn't see Making a Murderer, but that, I mean, like, that to me was bizarre. And now, he's back in the news again that, now they finally think they have evidence, to really put him away or whatever. That was just an insane thing to think that that's a real story. That's a true story. It's not made up,
But he was such a great interview. Like, he's got this kind of charisma. He's got this, this gravelly voice and this matter-of-fact way of talking, and he's so confident about everything. Right. But not in like a cocky way. You're like, oh, this guy, I kind of almost like Robert Durst and feel bad for him. Right. Well, I know I only have for a few more minutes, so I wanted to get into one more thing with you before we wrapped up. But before I do that, since we're talking about, all these shows and everything, and it just hit me. So you're a historian, and my fiance, and she's like really into sports because of all the documentaries and stuff I show for her. So do you feel like your passion for history and historical things like is magnified with sports because there is such rich history in sports as well? Or were you never really into the sports aspect of things, sports history that is, and more just, you get where I'm going with that? Yeah, dude, I almost feel like a fraud. Like I don't, like when someone comes up to me like, hey, 1974 Super Bowl, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like I go back to what I remember. Okay. I've never really, because you know what? It feels like it's been, tread over so many times. Like, what are you going to say that's new about the 1974 Super Bowl? Right. I never got into sports history like at all, to be honest, man. I enjoy the 30 for 30s. I like watching the documentaries. I think they're cool, but if someone comes up and makes a mention of like Blitnikoff, I know who he is, I know what he did, but I can't wax romantic on him. Sorry. No, that's fair. That's fair. It just was striking me like it's such an easy connection to make with hit sports and history. But well, you know what I do though, and I think more than normal people is with my research for like fantasy and stuff. I really do like look in past seasons and comparable players and stuff like that. It's the same kind of way your brain works. I'll find a player. Oh, I remember when this happened 5 years ago when this guy hit 25 home runs, then went down to 13, then back up to 25. And what was the reason for that? And you dig it up and then you try and apply it to the new guy. So in that sense, the research and the historical, I guess, kind of recall, kind of plays into fantasy more so than me being able to quote box scores from Game 7 of the World Series 50 years ago. Beyond just statistical data. I can put it to use. Yeah. Yes, exactly. You fill a story and to make it make sense, at least to make the numbers make sense. Yes. I get that. I also just realized I never turned the light on, so I could have saved it for you making a. Let's start it all over again. Yeah, we gotta start. So I've had every guest so far that's been on give. Who are these autographs, by the way? These are my friend of mine, Ray Palacios. He was a catcher for the Royals. He actually homered in Yankee Stadium, everything. He actually played in the pros, and he grew up in the neighborhood where my firehouse is. He grew up in my firehouse as a buff. And by the time he retired from the major leagues, he was too old to be a New York City firefighter, so he went up to Rochester, New York, and he's a firefighter for about 15 years or so up there now. Nice. Yeah, he's actually going to be on the show. Those are my stomping grounds. I'm going to have him on. I'm going to have him on in a future episode and tell his whole story. But where is your firehouse? In Brooklyn. All right. And did I tell you? I did. No, I don't think you did. If you did, we were drunk, man, at that event. So we were. Yeah. I remember meeting you. I remember Nickel Press. I remember a bunch of the questions. Yeah, that was a great event. Now, you know what? Real quick, since you brought that up, it was at Monmouth Race Park. It was FNTSY Sports Network and Sirius XM came together to do a live draft with a bunch of leading personalities and analysts, and Wayne Corbett, for instance, Chris Dolman, Eric Young, Lisa Ann. I mean, you had a whole slew of just great personalities. That was I want to say the first time you guys did that collectively. I know Jake has done stuff with the Flex Leagues and other stuff in the past, but how did that come off? And was that such a success that you guys are going to do this now? Is there anything coming up for baseball with that? I don't think we're doing it for baseball. We might. I'm not sure. There's so much already for baseball and like tout wars and labor and that stuff that
Right.
it wasn't really needed. Like for football, there isn't really a tout wars,
Right.
Or a labor league or anything like that. So I think it kind of grew out of that. And also, let's have a big party down at the racetrack. It'll be fun. Invite some cool people. Yeah. So I think it's gonna go on again for football. I doubt it for baseball, just because it already exists, and there's only so much real estate in those, those 3 weekends before the drafts. So,
well, listen, if you need any team owners or any replacement owners, if anybody cancels last minute or whatever, I'd be more than happy to throw my hat into the ring and help out where I can.
Kiss up to Jake. Because Jake's I'm sorry, you got to be kind of famous for the Fantasy Cup.
No, I know. I'm
either kiss up to Jake or do something crazy and get famous.
I'm gonna try to do both. But I was getting into that. Everybody that's been on so far has offered up a prize to give to the audience, but I haven't started giving away anything yet. I'm just kind of stockpiling them. And before Christmas, I was saying I'm kind of like Santa Claus with this big sack of stuff. I don't know how I'm going to give these away yet, or when I'm going to give them away. But would you like to volunteer something to the prize pool for that when that time comes?
Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can give free subscriptions to the Roto Experts premium package, or I can give like some T-shirts from Fantasy Sports Network.
Okay.
What do you want?
Any of that will work. I just wanted to know that I had you on record as being willing to offer something.
Yeah, give it something. Something of value.
Yeah, I think Jake actually offered up some Roto Expert subscriptions, as well as some hair product, some hair gel, or something to that effect. So yeah, exactly. And Courtney Kirby was giving her fantasy football mug. So I mean, it ranges all across the board. But
I didn't know they had mugs. Yeah, all right, cool.
I think they actually made it just to be able to give something away for this. But
that's
anyway,
awesome.
I know I gotta let you run. I really want to thank you so much for jumping on me, especially.
No, who's the chump who canceled, man?
I don't.
Tell me privately.
I will tell you privately. He didn't cancel. He had to reschedule, and I'm fortunate enough to like I said, know so many great people in this industry now. And for you to be able to jump on board so quickly, I really greatly appreciate it.
Oh, man, I'm glad to jump on, dude.
Well, it just worked out that, the transition from football to baseball, you are probably one of the more perfect people for that. So
thanks.
Nando Di Fino is my guest today. Please tell everybody again how they can find you, where they can find you.
Just check out Fantasy Sports Network. You can go on FNTSY.com if you don't have us in your area. And Twitter's just Nando Di Fino, but again, it's not a very entertaining Twitter feed. You can ask me whatever questions you want. You don't have to follow me to do that, though. Seriously, if you got questions, just hit me up.
He's being very modest. Absolutely, if you're not already, go follow Nando. He's one of the great people in this industry, and I'm really, like I said, I'm appreciative to have you. Happy to be able to call you friend, and thanks for jumping on. This has been another Hanging Einstein.
Thanks for being a fireman, dude.
No, listen, it's I'm blessed to have two great careers at this point. So
awesome.
It is. I try to pay back, and that's why I'm doing stuff like this. So thanks for being on, and thanks for everybody for tuning in to Hanging Einstein. Like I said, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the videos, comment on the videos, ask your questions here. And again, it's available on iTunes and Stitcher as well. So rate, review, liking us on iTunes. And that's it. Look for more great stuff coming out in the future. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.